Hola a todos. Me gustaría comenzar con dos cosas administrativas. El primero es para expresar mi gratitud a Douglas por su invitación a la conferencia a presentar con ustedes. Y la segunda es que yo no voy a destruir su idioma hablando español nada más. Yo creo que la señora en la esquina de atrás va a hacer una traducción mucho mejor que mi español. Entonces voy a cambiar a inglés, por favor. Ok. Bueno, mire, soy un geólogo, pero también un ejecutivo. Y hay dos cosas de una empresa pequeña. Una cosa que me odio, I said English. One thing I hate and the thing I love. The thing I hate is trying to raise money to advance a company in a project in markets like we've had in the last year. Ugh, it's just horrible and really challenging. The part I love is how geologists, we're detectives, right? Like, I think of a detective in forensics, and we use geophysics, and we use geochemistry, and we use our mapping, we use metallogenic models. And it's so much fun unraveling what went on in the Earth 20, 50, 80, 100, however many million years ago, and trying to find a deposit. I mean, it's just so rewarding. I just love being part of that, as I think most of us do as well. So this presentation is really talking about that, talking about the processes that we've done over the last 10 years as we first acquired Tenoriba in some really challenging markets, and how we think we're at the cusp of defining a resource in a high sulphidation that I think has great potential. I'm going to come down here just because I feel like I'm dancing around the podium. So we've got 100% interest. We've earned our 100% interest in Tenoriba. It's a high sulphidation system, gold, silver. It's subject to a 2% royalty, but it can be bought out for US $1.5 million in 2 years into production. So it doesn't encumber the project. 5,333 hectares. We've added about 1,800, and then we winnowed down from 8,000 hectares initially to be in a focused area. That winnowing down was because we didn't have the money to pay for taxes over some really lean periods. A lot of people talk about and present their teams. Somos un equipo flaca, porque it's like 2 or 3 people. I mean, we really push, and we're really efficient. You look at our administrative costs, if you go to our financials, I challenge you to find anybody that does as much as we do with as little as we do it with. We're renting equipment from poor people in the area when our pickup trucks break up and stuff like that. So we really make it happen. One of our guys is here, Arturo Morales. Arturo lives here in Hermosillo. He's one of our contract geologists. And the others are vice president of exploration, and myself, and that's basically the team. So it's a large 18 square kilometers, so it's a 6 kilometer by 3 kilometer, 4,500 football fields, gold footprint. Highest grade, I mean, we always like to talk about that. It was a hand sample, but 74 gram per ton gold, 62 silver. $6 million Canadian has been spent on the project. We're about 4.5 of that. We got it from a predecessor, which I'll talk a little bit about, who had spent $1.5 million. 54 diamond drill holes, 7,500 meters, testing a 4 kilometer by about 3 kilometer trend to about 150 meter depth. There's so much gold on surface, we're confident it'll be a Tajo Abierto, and I'll talk about a heap leach as well. Just some illustratives of some of the holes. 48 of the 54 are potentially economical. There's a 25.5 meter grading 4 gram, and we've had up to 127 meters grading 0.52. Appears amenable to low-cost open pit mining, as I mentioned, and then heap leach processing, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So we're located in el suroeste de Chihuahua in the Sierra. A lot of people talk about the El Triángulo. We've been there for 10 years. We've been able to work. So it speaks of that. I think we all know of the, sorry, I goofed there. pressed the wrong button. So we all know of the of this, trend of prolific mines. And what I like to say is, look, we're surrounded by multi-million ounce deposits owned in many cases by multi-billion-dollar companies, and little Mammoth is in that kind of hunting ground. Oops, I goofed on that one. So here's the layout of our concessions over this. Over these 54, pretty much 54 square kilometers, with the focus here of the area of mineralization. We've got good access to infrastructure. We can drive from the east to the west. There's a small gravel landing strip, and it's about a half an hour drive to our core storage and field camp. Another half an hour, and we're up on the top of the property. So pretty good access. High sulphidation system, we've seen lots of these. Different forms, but we've got all of the features, and I just compare what are some of the high sulfidations in this area. So Mulatto's at 6.2 million ounces, Lindy at 2, Sazelle at 1.8. All common characteristics. And to take that further, we had a PhD go in and look at all their historic data, look at our core, look at our outcrops, and he and his colleagues confirmation was that, yeah, indeed, high sulphidation system. So when we got the property off of a predecessor, Masuparia Gold had it in 2007 and 2008. I don't know why this is happening. Hello. So when we had this in 2007, we got it in 2007, in 2012. It had been explored in 2007, 2008. So they did stream sediments, they did 2,600 geochem samples over, as you can see, a 5 kilometer by about 3 kilometer area. All these white squares are where we did chip samples following up when we optioned the property in 2012 that graded better than 0.3. So we never announced anything that was below 0.3 in chip samples. These are 1.5 meter chip samples at the least. But you can see this footprint, and just to point out that red is 0.2 in soils, so it's highly anomalous. In fact, there were some soils that went as high as 6 grams in a couple of instances. So a really big footprint. That's where Masuparia did some initial drilling based on this work, 15 holes, the first 15 ever drilled in the project. And these are the results that they presented. And so I've highlighted a couple of the intersections. So there's a nice 1.9 meter of almost 50 grams. You can see there's 34.5 of over a gram, and there's a 66 of 0.5. So some really good results. We went out there, looked around the property as we were considering optioning it, and seeing vuggy silica, sampled some outcrops, 26 grams of gold per ton. So this was great, and we got this for $200,000 over a 5-year term. It was a wonderful option agreement. And why did we get it? It was because the guys hadn't paid their taxes. They'd gotten their notice that the taxes were due, and they were in a pinch. Great guy that we've had as our partner, and not the owner. He's allowed us to extend that for a couple of years, but now we own 100%. So we've honored all of our commitments. So I talked about amenable to open pit heap leach. So we did some heavy metal separation and then looked at the microscope. This was in Sonora at the university, and you can see how gold is occurring as either free gold or in fractures in sulfide grains. And so this was encouraging, and then from there we went out and we took a number of samples and sent them in for bottle roll tests, and we were getting 100% recovery in 24 years in the bottle, or 24 hours in the bottle roll test. So very attractive from a heap leach potential standpoint. So now I'm going to talk about what we've done. So the first thing that we did, having all this historical information, is we went out and we did an extensive mapping and sampling program, so over 600 samples. And so the red squares, and these are 2 kilometer grids, just to give a sense of how large of an area this is. So you can see our sampling over about 6 kilometer trend. The red is from 10 grams higher, the amber from 1 to 10, and then from 0.5 upwards in the other. So you can see the assortment, and again, those are those original holes. And so we've got 3 areas, Canaritos, Masuparia, and Moreno over here, and I'll be talking a lot about those. In the Canaritos area here, which is about a good 1.5 kilometers by 3/4 of a kilometer, of 146 samples there, 74% graded better than that 0.3 gram cutoff, and averaged 1.3 5.6 gram per ton gold on a weighted basis. So some, some good grades. We then went out and we did some channel samples. So it's great to get them in chips. We went to the largest outcrops we had. We cut channels as close to perpendicular as we could over these largest outcrops. And you can see the distribution of the channel samples over this 4-kilometer trend, and came up with some good grades. So there's a 15.5 corrected for true width at over a gram, 7 at 1.36, 13 at 1.5. So, and we had a couple of stinkers. I mean, some of them didn't come out. But the average, so of all of them, including the lousy ones, was 0.66. And if we took those two ones out, it totaled 120 meters. Look, it's not 120 meters straight, but 120 meters in the different areas, averaging almost 0.8 gram per ton gold equivalent. Then we went out and did some geophysics. Now, we only covered about 40% of the area. And in fact, over here in Moreno, we only had 3 lines covering 200 meters of strike. And the reason we did that was we didn't know it was going to be an effective tool. So why go and spend a whole bunch of money when money's scarce, covering the whole area with geophysics and find out that didn't really work? Part of what we did here is we went over where they had drilled previously, so we could calibrate what we saw in the geophysics relative to where they saw results. And so we got some good patterns over this area here in this general trend, and a wide spread up over here. So these are our geophysical lines, and then the blue is where we laid out our first drilling. So this is, we did 11 drill holes. There were 2 up in the north here, which were kind of more focused on spending some money on this concession versus really good targets. But of the 11 drill holes, we had 8 that were potentially of economic grade scattered over this area. And again, that's just a 200-meter strike length there. You can see 4 there where we're stepping out from the Masopari, and then these 3 here in this large Canaritos area. And you can see the results of this. So first drilling, and that we're hitting stuff on like 85% of our holes. And there's a 40 meter of 0.8, 10 meter of 1.13. We had some copper to the west. Interesting enough, we dropped down in topography about 600 meters from the east to the west. We get deeper in the system, we start to see some copper. So you can see this one. I mean, here's from 28 meters, an interval. We've got an including here, but almost from 28 meters down to 92 mineralized at these kind of grades in this central Masopari area. And then over here in Canaritos, where we only had 3 drill holes, I've announced 2 here, but 127 meters of the 0.52, of which there's almost 60 meters of 0.8 and 25 of 1.21. So, hey, pretty good for the first drilling, right? The tools worked, and we got some good results. So that attracted Centerra. So Centerra came in as a joint venture partner for 21 months, and they were to spend US $5 million over, well, they were to spend $9 million over maybe as long as 9 years. They spent $1.2 million over 21 months, mapped samples, had permitted 139 drill holes, had 2 contractors bidding on the project. And then we got on a conference call thinking they were going to tell us about where they were drilling, and they told us they were leaving Mexico. So they gave us back the property, and we really quickly got back in the community and said we're going to honor their commitments. And we got the PhD in to review all of the work that had been done, because we didn't have a lot of confidence in what Centerra had done, because during that time they'd had 3 different groups of geologists at different times coming in, and no continuity between any 3 of them. And that they would work for a little while, then they would leave. Then someone else would come in, and then they would leave. Then someone else would come in, and then they would leave. So we did the PhD review, MDA associates, 2 PhDs, and the conclusion was Tenoriba is a high-quality, early to mid-stage exploration project with potential to host an economic high-sulphidation epithermal deposit. So quite optimistic about it. We went in, did an infill IP mag, covering the 60% that wasn't covered in the first survey. We extended our soil footprint, soil geochem footprint 1 kilometer west, sampled up to 0.7 in one of those, in some of that sampling. And then we went out to a geophysical specialist, PhD, guys have been working interpreting geophysics for years, and had them assist us first in the design of this survey. So we literally brought in samples of core, and they did little measurements between to get an understanding of the kind of signals they should get in the different type of rocks. And from that, gave them an ability to better evaluate the responses that we got in our survey. and then did a 3D interpretation of that for our target generation. Financed a 27 drill program for 3,300 meters, of which I'm now going to talk about. So there's the extension of our soil geochem here. So you can see the 0.7s here coming off of the other. And there's these 6.3 and 6.1 gold in soil grams, my God. This is our combined, the yellow dots are soils. The base color map is mag, and then these hatched marks are resistivity highs and conductivity highs. So, in areas where we see the crosshatch, and then there's some old workings, and the little triangles are the higher grade chip samples. So we've got these 3 large areas here. Now, what's interesting about this base geophysics map on the mag is the mag low is the depletion in magnetic minerals because of hydrothermal activity. So that's a really attractive area here, even though it doesn't necessarily stand out on resistivity. And the reason it doesn't stand out on resistivity is oxidization. So the oxidization results in some feldspars, clays, or the destruction of the feldspars into clays, and the clays are conductive, which masks the resistivity. However, if you go below 50 meters, you can start to see that signal. This is the layout of our drilling from this 21-22 program, the 27 drill holes. Tens of meters of potentially economic, I have to say potentially, economical grade gold silver, blocking out these large areas. And that's the thing, we were blocking these out. We were doing 150, 200 meter step outs. In some cases, we were doing 700 meter step outs. Like we're really trying to just block out. It's not conservative 50 meter stuff. This is exploration. High risk equals high reward, and we were prepared to take some risks. And we did that in this area here. And in other areas over here, you can see some of the outlying drilling that we did. So this is a video that I'm going to show later, just showing that layout, so you get a sense of what the terrain's like there. So this is the, and I think it's supposed to advance. You know what? Maybe that's later. Anyway, so here you can see the results that we got, just some highlight ones. So 37.5 meters, 0.53. Anyway, you can read them all. 43, 59, 48, 0.5, 30, that, and the 85.7, 0.47, 8, there's an 81, a 0.48, and then we get some higher grade stuff here, 48, a 1.2. So some, again, really great open pit type, heap leach type grades throughout a really large 4 kilometer by 3 kilometer area, and then within these other areas. We averaged about 0.65 weighted. I'm not trying to say it's a resource, but we averaged 0.5, and then our average interval was 37.5 meters in our drilling. We're now, and actually, you know what, there was an animation there, but it's not working. Can you animate this slide? It doesn't seem to want to work. Remember we tried it and it worked? Anyway, it just was a flyover. It looked kind of, we spent some time, some work on it. Doesn't seem like it's going to work. That's unfortunate. It was really good. It was really good. Go to our website and you'll be able to see that. Darn, I spent so much time last night on it. But anyway, so now what are we doing right now? So we got these drill results. So again, we took some samples from the Canaritos area, because the earlier stuff had been from Masopar. We did some sampling in Canaritos. So sample A is mixed oxide sulfide, B and C are oxides, and you can see the kind of recoveries we were getting in very quick, look at 86% in 2 hours in the oxide. Recovery in gold, 86 again in the other one, and that down to kind of mid-90s, early 90s in the oxides, and mid-70s in the sulfides. So, we haven't done column tests yet, but, we're seeing some good stuff. Now, we have also sent it up for a heavy metal separation, but because we were taking kind of 0.65, 0.7 gram, there's not as much separation. I don't know if we're going to be able to see gold in those kind of grades, but again, just to confirm the free nature of the gold that results in this, and again, low cyanide consumption as well. So again, looking very attractive for heap leach. So now the other step that we're taking, and I had a call at 6 o'clock this morning with Toronto at their 9 o'clock, was we've gone out to our resource modeling specialist, and we've given him all of our data, and he's looking, and so his conclusions were, as far as drill spacing to bring it into initial inferred resource, was 80 meters in Moreno, 40 in Masuparia, and 80 in Canaritos. And so for really another 80 to 100 drill holes, roughly targeting an initial open pit, 100-meter depth, we would have a maiden resource. And I want to put some context to that in this slide. Okay, so what I did here was we went to all the technical studies on CEDAR of Sazal with Francisco Gold, La India with Agnico, and Mulatos. So we went back in time when they did it, and we looked at the surface of their pits. So these are the outlines of their pits. So that includes a strip, but these are the outlines of their pits, and everything's been put into similar 1 kilometer squares. And these are our areas that we saw in all of our earlier slides and that. So just, on a thing of size. Okay, look at Sazal was much higher grade, but it was also modeled at $300 an ounce gold. Okay, Mulatos as well, initially modeled at 350 gold, higher grade, 1.64, 1.52. Later on, with a 3 million ounce resource, 1.8 there. La India about close to 1 million, closer to our kind of numbers, 0.65, and that was modeled at close to $1,400 an ounce gold versus our $1,700 now. Okay, so these are their resource footprints at the surface of their pits, taking into account that things are going to be going down at depth, and these are the size of the areas that we're exploring. And so just to put some context to that, okay, if you just did your basic numbers, you get Canaritos is 1.5 kilometers right now by 0.5 kilometer, and you take a 2.5, 2.4 specific gravity, you take our 0.65 grade, you do your math, right? Anyway, every 10 meters of that, if 50% of that area is mineralized, we got a couple 100,000 ounces of gold. So, and that's just one of 3 areas. So, look at it. I think we are at the cusp of, a large deposit here. And if I can somehow get the money to do another drill program, and we can put in another 80 to 100 drill holes, you know what? I think we're going to be at the, we're going to be able to define that initial maiden resource in that. So anyone wants to invest in Mammoth, put your hand up, and we can talk later. Price is going to be a bit higher than it is right now. It always has to be like that, but I just want to let you know that. So, yeah, so that concludes my presentation. I hope you can see kind of the detective aspect of it that obviously I'm really enthusiastic about, and it's been so much fun kind of unraveling this, and we look forward to the next steps if we can only get some bloody money. So that's it. Any questions? I'm happy to.